All right, let's start with the big picture. Coach Brian Schottenheimer has been clear. He doesn't need to rush final decisions on the 53-man roster, and that matters for you because it means depth and patience are part of the plan, not panic. What I want you to take away right up front is this. When you look at the spine of this team, Dak Prescott under center, CeeDee Lamb as the no-doubt top option, and Micah Parsons setting the edge, you've still got the three most important building blocks for confidence. That's not hype, that's reality, and it's the reason a lot of the tough choices we'll discuss now even exist. Now, a second big picture point. Injuries and recoveries are shaping every decision. Guys like Diggs and Siobhan Revel aren't out of mind, they're just being managed. That's why the Cowboys are adding depth and keeping options open. From your seat, that should feel smart. It keeps the roster flexible for the season and prevents being forced into moves when guys return healthy. Let's be honest, though. Having too much of a good thing at one position can cost you elsewhere. The article that inspired this breakdown points to a 3 QB room right now. Dak, Joe Milton, and Will Grier. And the team even added another veteran. You and I both know carrying 3 quarterbacks eats up a roster spot that could otherwise be used for an offensive lineman, a pass rusher, or an extra weapon on offense. So when you hear analysts worry about depth, that's what they mean. Every extra QB is a trade-off somewhere else on the roster. Still, the 3 QB approach tells you the coaching staff values stability and the ability to protect the season if an injury happens. Moving to the running backs and receivers, take away the noise for a second and you see a unit that balances a steady workhorse with explosiveness. Javonte Williams and Phil Maffa give you a reliable 1-2 punch, while Jaden Blue is the home run type they can unleash. At receiver, CeeDee and George remain the anchors. Beyond them, you've got players pushing for snaps. Turpin doing multiple jobs, Jalen Tolbert and Jonathan Mingo fighting through availability issues, and Tashan Holden showing traits that excite coaches. That fights with the same roster math. How many WRs do you carry when the quarterback room is big? I want to hear from you already. In the comments, tell me one worry and one reason you're optimistic about this projected 53. Also, if you want these roster breakdowns first, hit subscribe. We're grinding towards 16,000 and every new subscriber helps us bring you these early takes. If you're ready, let's take a closer look at the offense. Starting with the quarterback room, Dak Prescott is obviously the centerpiece, the guy you build around. Behind him, you've got Will Grier and Joe Milton. Joe's preseason was a bit up and down, some flashes, some struggles, which explains why the Cowboys are still weighing options. Personally, I see Will Grier emerging as the clear QB2, but having 3 quarterbacks gives the staff flexibility in case of injury and also opens trade possibilities for depth elsewhere. They even brought in a veteran recently to add another layer of security. This tells you the Cowboys are thinking long-term, not just filling spots, and that's smart. Now here's a question for you. If you had to choose, would you keep 3 quarterbacks or trim down to 2? Drop your vote in the comments. Moving to the running back room, there's some exciting depth. Javonte Williams brings reliability, Phil Maffa has shown he can explode when given the chance, and Jaden Blue is your potential home run threat. Hunter Luque rounds out the mix, giving you fullback versatility, but it's unclear how much he'll see the field with this depth. Even Kevontae Turpin can line up at running back sometimes. The beauty here is balance. You don't overstack the room, but you've got enough talent to handle injuries and rotation without losing production. If you're a fan of breakout backs, keep your eye on Phil Maffa and Jaden Blue. They could surprise this season. Wide receivers are next, and this is where things get interesting. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are your top 2. No questions asked. Kevontae Turpin adds versatility, and then you have Jalen Tolbert, Ryan Florian, and Jonathan Mingo battling for snaps. Mingo's PCL injury opens opportunities for Tashan Holden and Jalen Brooks to step up. Tashan Holden, in particular, has been showing Dez-like traits in camp, which makes him a player to watch. Ryan Florian is also an intriguing option to provide that WR4 production, especially if injuries hit or matchups require more flexibility. The key here is depth. The Cowboys want guys who can step in and maintain the level of play we've come to expect from this team. Quick fan poll. Who do you want to see get more snaps this year, Holden or Mingo? Tight ends are more straightforward. Jake Ferguson and Schoonmaker anchor the group, and Spanford is coming back from an ankle sprain. Princeton Fant has flashed in camp and preseason, showing he could be a real weapon. With the potential for 3 or 4 tight ends active, the Cowboys are keeping options open while protecting young talent from being poached by other teams. Depth matters, and they're clearly thinking about it in every roster decision. Finally, the offensive line. This group is a major reason for optimism. Tyler Gayton's recovery seems on track. Tyler Smith and Tyler Booker bring youth and strength. Cooper Beebe has reliable mechanics, and Terrence Steele continues to be a force in run blocking. Even the backups, Nate Thomas, Brock Hoffman, Akeem Ajendi, and TJ Bass, add quality depth. With 3 quarterbacks taking up a roster spot, the line could be stretched, but overall, this unit has the potential to be a top 10 offensive line in the league, especially with the mix of youth, strength, and experience. Think about it. A strong O-line protects Dak, opens lanes for Williams and Maffa, and lets CeeDee and Pickens work their magic downfield. It's a cornerstone of this roster's potential. Now let's switch gears and take a deep dive into the defense, because this is where the Cowboys' identity really comes to life. Starting with the defensive line, you've got Michael Parsons anchoring the edge alongside Trevon Diggs, Solomon Thomas, Sam Williams, Maisie Smith, Marshawn Neen, Dante Fowler, Donovan Ezra, Peyton Turner, and Perrion Winfrey. The headline here is depth and versatility. Parsons is the cornerstone, and the mix of young talent and experienced players gives the Cowboys a legitimate pass-rushing threat. But the big conversation is Maisie Smith versus Jay Toya. Jay Toya has shown a stronger presence against the run, more energy in camp, and a natural ability to disrupt the line of scrimmage. Maisie's size and experience are valuable, but some fans and analysts are questioning whether he'll hold up against power teams. So here's a question for you. Who do you want starting, Maisie or Jay Toya? Drop your vote in the comments because this is going to be a season-long storyline. Linebackers are next, and this group has been quietly impressive. Jack Sanborn and Keith Murray have been balling in camp, showing the ability to cover, tackle, and read plays. Overshown is obviously a key player returning from injury, and his presence solidifies the core. Then you've got Mars Alay, Dion Clark, and Shamir James adding depth and athleticism. The linebacker room has never looked this young and dynamic, which is exciting because it combines speed, coverage, and run-stopping ability. This is a rebuild that's showing promise, not just a patchwork job. And by week 1, the synergy between these players could make a major difference against any offense. Let me know in the comments, which linebacker are you most excited to watch this year? Cornerbacks are another group to monitor closely. Darren Bland, Kay Elam, and Israel form the top 3, with Hall and Zion Childress rotating behind them. The big question mark comes when Trevon Diggs returns, along with Siobhan Revel. Their return pushes some of these young guys to the practice squad, but that depth is a luxury the Cowboys want. It also sets up internal competition, which is always healthy. The battles for snaps at corner will be fascinating, especially as injuries or matchups dictate who sees the field. Depth in this position is one of the reasons the Cowboys can confidently rotate players without a massive drop in coverage quality. Lastly, safeties. Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Maris Bell, and Jawan Thomas make up this unit. Bell in particular has been impressive in camp, showing the ability to read plays and make game-changing tackles. These safeties are consistent, rarely miss assignments, and bring an added layer of stability to the back end. Injuries haven't been a major concern here, and that consistency matters when you're building a defense that wants to compete in the playoff race. When you watch the DB room and safeties together, you see a unit that can handle pressure, make adjustments, and provide reliable coverage, all while keeping the pass rush working without panic. Now let's focus on the bubble players and special teams, because these areas often decide the difference between a good team and a championship contender. On special teams, Brandon Aubrey handles the kicking duties, Brian Anger is your punter, and Trent Sieg manages returns. These guys are reliable, and having dependable specialists is critical. Missed field goals or poor punts can swing games in ways the stats don't always show. Beyond the specialists, the Cowboys are keeping an eye on players like Jonathan Mingo, Jalen Brooks, and Tashan Holden, who could easily swing between active roster and practice squad depending on injuries and matchups. The beauty of this roster is that it isn't rigid. Flexibility is baked in. Depth matters, especially when a few key players like Diggs and Siobhan Revel are still on the mend. The team even brought in a veteran quarterback recently, adding more depth and security to an already flexible QB room. This is smart management. You don't rush guys back from injury and you prepare for the inevitable twists a long season brings. Another bubble story worth noting is Joe Milton. With a spot possibly opening up for trade or release, his erratic preseason plays have made his future uncertain. Yet, this is also a reminder of how important depth is in today's NFL. Keeping options open, evaluating performances, and letting young players push for roster spots ensures the Cowboys can adjust on the fly and maintain a competitive edge week after week. When you take a full look at the projected 53, Dak Prescott leading the QB room, a versatile running back group with Javonte Williams, Phil Maffa, and Jaden Blue, a receiver core led by CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, tight ends anchored by Ferguson and Schoonmaker, a young but strong offensive line, a defensive line and linebackers capable of stopping and pressuring, plus a deep secondary and reliable specialists, you start to see why optimism is warranted. This isn't just a team with talent, it's a team built with balance, flexibility, and the ability to absorb injuries without a catastrophic drop-off. Here's my final take. This roster is poised to compete at a high level. It's not perfect, no roster ever is. But when you consider the mix of star power, youth, depth, and smart management, you have a solid foundation for success. And the biggest reason I feel confident? Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. You can't build a team like this without those three as cornerstones. Before we wrap, I want you to engage. Drop a comment with your top breakout player this season and hit like if you're excited to see this roster in action. Don't forget to subscribe. Every new subscriber brings us closer to 16,000, and you'll get all the latest Cowboys roster updates and insider breakdowns first. Cowboys Nation, this is your projected 53-man roster, and it's looking solid. Stick with us, and we'll keep you updated every step of the way as the season heats up.